to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. What was Martin Luther's view of the Jewish people? I've heard he offered the olive branch of peace to them and they refused him. Then he informed the church to turn their backs on the Jewish people. Well, let's talk about old Martin Luther for a moment. About 500 years ago, we have this small Franciscan monk who comes to a revelation of Romans chapter 1 that we are saved by faith alone apart from works. He initiated what you and I now know as the, quote, Protestant Reformation. That's important to answering this question. Martin Luther walked through the steps that many of you have walked through, or many of those that you've loved walked through. He was the first believer. Now, if you've ever met somebody, now when I say first believer, I'll get back to that. If you've ever been yourself or somebody you know who was the first believer in their family, in other words, come from a completely lost background, no faith in Jesus Christ, the first person in the family, no matter what their age or stage of life, the first person who's a believer is really flying without a map. I mean, they really don't know the how, the what, the when, and the where, and it gets a little bit messy. In fact, we've discovered historically that in individual families, that Christianity is introduced at some point, but it never really solidifies, meaning doctrinally, orthodoxy, practice, until about the third generation. That first generation kind of stumbles around and honestly does some things and makes some mistakes that the third generation won't, vice versa, second, etc. All that being said, Martin Luther may have been absolutely right when it came to we are saved by grace through faith and not of works. But there's a lot of areas that you and I personally would probably struggle with because he was not just the first in his family, he was really one of the first during a time period where there were very few true believers in Jesus Christ. And to the point of the question, he had a very negative view of the Jewish people. In fact, some people would claim he was even anti-Semitic. I would say that being anti-Semitic is not a biblical position, and I have no problem saying that Martin Luther was wrong on that. But here's the thing I want you to hear. He was right about salvation by grace through faith alone. And because he was the first generation, I do not agree with his stance on the Jewish people. I do not believe it to be biblically accurate. But I'm going to cut him a little grace because he didn't have the privilege of going to his pastor. He didn't have the privilege of going to his earthly parents. He didn't have the privilege of going to somebody who'd been walking with the Lord for years and say, can he help me out with this? He really was the true first of his generation. And unfortunately, I believe he was wrong on this issue, but I'm going to cut him some grace. Great question. If you have one, send it to AskJeff.net. Maybe your question will be tomorrow's. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at AskJeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.